The night Sebastian crosses the boundary into vampire territory, he's not thinking about the consequences. He's 6 years old, barefoot, and running as fast as his small legs can carry him through a forest that no human has entered in 300 years. Behind him, his mother's screams are growing fainter. Ahead of him, something far more dangerous waits in the darkness. Sebastian doesn't know about the ancient treaty. He doesn't know that the forest marking the edge of Blackwood Village is forbidden to humans on pain of death. He doesn't know that the creatures who rule these woods haven't seen a human child in generations. All he knows is that his mother told him to run, to find help, to not look back no matter what he hears. So he runs, tears streaming down his face, calling out for someone, anyone, to save her. What he's about to discover will shatter every belief the vampire world holds sacred. But first, he has to survive the next 60 seconds. Because in the heart of this forest stands a castle, and in that castle sits a king who hasn't felt mercy in over 5 centuries, a king whose law is absolute, a king who, according to legend, killed the last human who dared enter his domain with his bare hands. Before we continue with what happens when Sebastian reaches that castle, if you're enjoying this story, please hit that subscribe button and smash the like button. Share this with someone who loves supernatural drama, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. Now, let's get back to the moment that changes everything. Sebastian bursts through the tree line into a clearing, and that's when he sees it. The castle rises against the full moon like something from a nightmare. All black stone and sharp towers, the windows glow with an eerie crimson light. The air itself feels colder here, heavy with a presence that makes his skin prickle. Every instinct screams at him to turn back. But he hears his mother's voice in his head, begging him to be brave. So he stumbles forward, his small hand pushing against the massive iron gate. It swings open with a sound like a death rattle. Inside the throne room, Vampire King Lucian is in the middle of a council meeting when he smells it. Human blood. Fresh, young, terror-soaked. His eyes flash crimson, and every vampire in the room tenses. It's been 300 years since the treaty banned humans from entering their territory. 300 years since any mortal has been foolish enough to cross the boundary. The punishment for breaking the treaty is death. Swift, brutal, and public. Lucian rises from his throne, his movements predatory and precise. His advisors expect him to give the order to kill. That's what the law demands. That's what he's done before. But as the throne room doors burst open and a tiny figure stumbles in, something happens that Lucian will later describe as the first shock of his immortal life. The child doesn't run from him. The child runs to him, and the words that pour from the boy's mouth will set in motion events that will tear both their worlds apart. But what Sebastian says, and what Lucian does in response, we'll have to wait, because at that exact moment, in Blackwood Village, Sebastian's mother is learning that the men hurting her aren't ordinary criminals. There's something far worse, and what they're looking for will explain why a 6-year-old boy just committed the most dangerous act in human history. Sebastian crashes to his knees in front of the throne, his small chest heaving. He doesn't see the dozen vampires flanking the king, their eyes glowing red with hunger. He doesn't notice the advisor reaching for his sword. He only sees the tall figure on the throne, dressed in black, with eyes that seem to look straight through him. And in that moment of pure desperation, Sebastian makes a choice that will change the fate of 2 species. He cries out, his voice breaking, "Please, they're hurting my mum. You have to help her." The words echo through the stone chamber. Silence falls like a physical weight. No one moves, no one breathes, because what this child has just done is so unprecedented, so impossible, that even immortal minds struggle to process it. A human child has just asked a vampire king for help. Lucian stares at the boy. 500 years of existence have taught him to expect deception, manipulation, and violence from humans. What he has never expected is this raw, unfiltered plea from a creature who should be paralyzed with fear. The boy's scent confirms his terror, but his eyes show something else: determination, trust, hope, 3 emotions that have no place in dealings between vampires and humans. The king's advisor, Marcus, steps forward, his hand on his blade. The law is clear. The punishment is death. But before Marcus can speak, Lucian raises one hand, silencing him, because there's something about this situation that doesn't add up. Human children don't wander into vampire territory by accident. The forest is too dark, too obviously dangerous. Which means this boy was sent here, or he's running from something worse than vampires. Lucien descends from his throne with movements so fluid they're barely visible. He approaches the child, who flinches but doesn't flee. Up close, Lucien can see the marks on the boy's arms. Bruises, fresh and angry, scratches that look like they came from being grabbed roughly. And on the child's neck, barely visible beneath his collar, something that makes Lucien's ancient blood run cold. A brand mark, one he hasn't seen in over 2 centuries, the mark of the Crimson Hand, a human cult that was supposed to have been eradicated long ago, a group that believed vampire blood could grant immortality if harvested correctly, an organization that conducted experiments so horrific that both vampires and humans united to destroy them. If the Crimson Hand has returned, and if they're in Blackwood Village, then this child's mother isn't just in danger. She's likely already dead, or worse, being used as bait. Lucien should walk away. The smart play is to kill the child quickly and send a message that the treaty stands, but something in the boy's eyes stops him. A memory surfaces, one Lucien thought he'd buried centuries ago. A memory of another child, another desperate plea, another moment when he had to choose between law and mercy. He made the wrong choice then. The screams still haunt him. The king's voice when he speaks is cold enough to frost the air. "What is your name, child?" Sebastian wipes his tears with the back of his hand and answers, "Sebastian, your majesty." The formality is so unexpected that several vampires exchange glances. Someone taught this boy how to address royalty, which means his mother isn't some random villager. She's someone with knowledge of the old ways. Lucien's next question changes everything. "Your mother. What is her name?" Sebastian's answer will reveal a connection so impossible, so thoroughly buried by history, that when he speaks it, Marcus actually gasps. But we'll have to wait to hear that name. Because at this exact moment, in Blackwood Village, Sebastian's mother does something that will determine whether she lives through the next 10 minutes. Something that will prove she knows exactly who she is, and exactly what she's unleashed by sending her son to the Vampire King. Sebastian's voice is barely a whisper when he answers, but in the silent throne room, it might as well be a scream. "Elena, Elena Morningstar." The reaction is immediate and explosive. Marcus drops his sword. 3 council members stumble backward, and Lucien, the Vampire King who has faced armies without flinching, actually takes a step back. Because Morningstar isn't just a name, it's a legacy thought extinct. It's a bloodline that once stood between vampires and humans, as mediators, peacekeepers, and the only thing preventing total war. The Morningstars had a gift, ability to move between both worlds, to speak with authority that both sides respected. They were humanity's champions and vampirism's conscience. And 300 years ago, they were all slaughtered in a single night of betrayal, so complete that their name became forbidden to speak. Lucien's voice is dangerously quiet when he asks, "That's impossible." The Morningstar line ended. "I saw the bodies myself." But even as he says it, pieces are falling into place. The child's unusual courage, the formal address, the fact that he somehow knew to come here, to this specific castle, to seek help from the one creature in existence who might actually care about a Morningstar's fate. Sebastian doesn't understand the shock his mother's name has caused, but he understands urgency. "Please, your majesty. They have her in the old church. The men with the red hand symbol. They're doing something to her, something that makes her scream. She told me to run, to find you, that you would understand when you heard her name. She said to tell you the debt still stands." The debt. Lucien's eyes flash with an emotion that looks almost like pain, because he knows exactly what debt Elena Morningstar is invoking. 300 years ago, when the Morningstars were being hunted, one of them saved Lucien's life. Not from death. Vampires are hard to kill, but from something worse, from losing the last shred of his humanity. And in return, Lucien swore an oath, sealed in blood and magic, that any Morningstar who called upon him would receive his protection, no matter the cost. He thought he'd never have to honor that oath. The Morningstars were gone, but apparently one survived. One hid, built a new life, raised a child in secret. And now, When the shadows of the past have found her, she's calling in a debt 3 centuries old. Lucian should be angry at being manipulated. Instead, he feels something he hasn't experienced in decades: purpose. Human children don't wander into vampire territory by accident. The forest is too dark, too obviously dangerous, which means this boy was sent here, or he's running from something worse than vampires. Lucian descends from his throne with movements so fluid they're barely visible. He approaches the child, who flinches but doesn't flee. Up close, Lucian can see the marks on the boy's arms: bruises, fresh and angry, scratches that look like they came from being grabbed roughly. And on the child's neck, barely visible beneath his collar, something that makes Lucian's ancient blood run cold: a brand mark, one he hasn't seen in over 2 centuries, the mark of the Crimson Hand, a human cult that was supposed to have been eradicated long ago, a group that believed vampire blood could grant immortality if harvested correctly, an organization that conducted experiments so horrific that both vampires and humans united to destroy them. If the Crimson Hand has returned, and if they're in Blackwood Village, then this child's mother isn't just in danger. She's likely already dead, or worse, being used as bait. Lucian should walk away. The smart play is to kill the child quickly and send a message that the treaty stands, but something in the boy's eyes stops him. A memory surfaces, one Lucian thought he'd buried centuries ago. A memory of another child, another desperate plea, another moment when he had to choose between law and mercy. He made the wrong choice then. The screams still haunt him. The king's voice when he speaks is cold enough to frost the air. "What is your name, child?" Sebastian wipes his tears with the back of his hand and answers, "Sebastian, your majesty." The formality is so unexpected that several vampires exchange glances. Someone taught this boy how to address royalty, which means his mother isn't some random villager. She's someone with knowledge of the old ways. Lucian's next question changes everything. "Your mother. What is her name?" Sebastian's answer will reveal a connection so impossible, so thoroughly buried by history, that when he speaks it, Marcus actually gasps. But we'll have to wait to hear that name. Because at this exact moment, in Blackwood Village, Sebastian's mother does something that will determine whether she lives through the next 10 minutes. Something that will prove she knows exactly who she is, and exactly what she's unleashed by sending her son to the Vampire King. Sebastian's voice is barely a whisper when he answers, but in the silent throne room, it might as well be a scream. "Elena, Elena Morningstar." The reaction is immediate and explosive. Marcus drops his sword. 3 council members stumble backward, and Lucian, the Vampire King who has faced armies without flinching, actually takes a step back. Because Morningstar isn't just a name, it's a legacy thought extinct. It's a bloodline that once stood between vampires and humans, as mediators, peacekeepers, and the only thing preventing total war. The Morningstars had a gift, ability to move between both worlds, to speak with authority that both sides respected. They were humanity's champions and vampirism's conscience. And 300 years ago, they were all slaughtered in a single night of betrayal, so complete that their name became forbidden to speak. Lucian's voice is dangerously quiet when he asks, "That's impossible." The Morningstar line ended. "I saw the bodies myself." But even as he says it, pieces are falling into place. The child's unusual courage, the formal address, the fact that he somehow knew to come here, to this specific castle, to seek help from the one creature in existence who might actually care about a Morningstar's fate. Sebastian doesn't understand the shock his mother's name has caused, but he understands urgency. "Please, your majesty. They have her in the old church. The men with the red hand symbol. They're doing something to her, something that makes her scream. She told me to run, to find you, that you would understand when you heard her name. She said to tell you the debt still stands." The debt. Lucian's eyes flash with an emotion that looks almost like pain, because he knows exactly what debt Elena Morningstar is invoking. 300 years ago, when the Morningstars were being hunted, one of them saved Lucian's life. Not from death. Vampires are hard to kill, but from something worse, from losing the last shred of his humanity. And in return, Lucian swore an oath, sealed in blood and magic, that any morning star who called upon him would receive his protection, no matter the cost. He thought he'd never have to honor that oath. The morning stars were gone, but apparently one survived. One hid, built a new life, raised a child in secret. And now, when the shadows of the past have found her, she's calling in a debt 3 centuries old. Lucian should be angry at being manipulated. Instead, he feels something he hasn't experienced in decades: purpose. He places a hand on Sebastian's shoulder, gentle despite the claws that could shred steel. Your mother is brave to have sent you to me. You are brave to have made the journey. Now I need you to be brave one more time. You will stay here, in this castle, under guard. When I return with your mother, we will talk about what comes next. But Sebastian shakes his head, and the defiance in his small voice would be amusing if the situation weren't so dire. No, I'm going with you. She's my mum. I have to help. Lucian could force the issue. One command and the guards would restrain the child. But something about Sebastian's determination reminds him why the Morning Stars were once the only humans vampires truly respected. They didn't know how to quit. Before Lucian can respond, a sentinel bursts into the throne room, his face panicked. My king. The scouts report smoke rising from Blackwood Village, multiple fires, and they heard screaming. Not human screaming. Something else. Lucian's blood runs cold. The ritual has already started. The gate is opening, and if that smoke is what he thinks it is, they're already too late to stop the summoning. They can only hope to survive what comes next. He makes a decision that breaks every protocol. Sebastian, you ride with me. Stay close, do exactly as I say, and when I tell you to run, you run. Understood? The boy nods, and Lucian sweeps him up, moving so fast that the child barely has time to gasp before they're outside, where 20 of the most dangerous vampires in existence wait on horseback. The ride to Blackwood Village will take 15 minutes at vampire speed. 15 minutes during which Lucian has to explain to a 6-year-old boy that his mother isn't just special because she's a morning star. She's special because her bloodline carries the genetic key to controlling powers that modern humans have forgotten exist. And the Crimson Hand doesn't just want to kill her. They want to drain every drop of her blood, consume her essence, and use her death to bring forth an age of darkness. But as the vampires race through the forest, Sebastian riding in front of Lucian on the midnight black warhorse, neither of them knows that Elena has already made her own choice. A choice that will change everything about this rescue mission. Because Elena Morningstar didn't survive 300 years of her family's enemies by being helpless. She survived by being smart, ruthless, and willing to do whatever it takes to protect her son. And what she's done in that church, in the minutes since Sebastian ran, will shock even a vampire king. The scene Lucian finds when he crashes through the church doors will haunt him for the rest of his immortal life. Elena Morningstar is still on the stone altar, but she's not screaming anymore. She's chanting, and the symbols drawn around her in blood aren't glowing red anymore. They're glowing gold, because Elena has done the impossible. She's reversed the ritual. The 7 Crimson Hand cultists are scattered across the floor, their bodies twisted in unnatural positions. They're not dead, which is somehow worse. They're frozen mid-scream, their eyes wide with terror, their mouths open in silent agony. And hovering above Elena, instead of a shadow gate, is something that makes even Lucian take a step back. A sphere of pure light, pulsing with energy that feels both ancient and impossibly powerful. Elena's eyes find her son, and the relief that crosses her face is immediately replaced by horror. Lucian, get Sebastian out of here, now, but it's already too late. The sphere of light pulses once, twice, and then it speaks, not in words but directly into their minds. And what it says will redefine everything they thought they knew about Morningstars, vampires, and the war that supposedly ended 300 years ago. The child of 2 worlds stands before us, the bridge between death and life, the one the prophecy foretold. The sphere's attention fixes on Sebastian, and the boy staggers under the weight of that ancient consciousness. Lucian moves instinctively, placing himself between the entity and the child. But Elena's voice cuts through his protective instinct. He's not in danger from them, Lucian. He never was. The Crimson Hand didn't come here to kill me. They came here to activate him. She points at Sebastian, and her hand is shaking. They knew what he is, what we both are. The convergence isn't just about opening gates, it's about awakening bloodlines, and my son's bloodline is about to wake up. Lucian's mind races. Child of two worlds, it's impossible. Morning stars are human, gifted but human. Unless, Olena, what did you do? His voice is barely controlled fury, because there's only one way a child could be a bridge between death and life, only one way a morning star bloodline could create something the prophecy would care about. Elena's answer comes as Sebastian begins to glow with the same golden light as the sphere. I did what I had to do to keep him safe. I bound his vampire half. I hid what he really is. Because if anyone knew that a morning star and a vampire could produce a child, if anyone knew that child could walk in daylight with a vampire's strength, they would have hunted us both. The revelation hits Lucian like a physical blow. Sebastian is a Dampier, not a legend, not a myth, but an actual hybrid that shouldn't be possible. Vampires are undead. They can't create life. Every text, every legend says hybrid children are impossible. But the evidence is standing in front of him, glowing with power that's making the church walls crack. And suddenly, so many things make sense. Why Sebastian could enter vampire territory without triggering the wards. Why his scent was human but somehow wrong. Why Lucian felt an inexplicable pull to protect the child. Marcus and the night guard burst in, weapons ready, but they freeze at the sight. Their king, standing protectively over a glowing child, a woman on an altar surrounded by fallen cultists, and a sphere of light that radiates power older than their species. Marcus's voice is choked. My king, what is this? Before Lucian can answer, Sebastian collapses. The golden light flares so bright, everyone has to shield their eyes. And when it fades, the boy is different. His eyes have changed color, shifting from brown to a striking silver gold. His canines have elongated slightly, and when he looks up at Lucian, there's an awareness in his gaze that wasn't there before. An ancient consciousness looking out through a 6-year-old's face. The sphere speaks again, and this time its words are directed at Lucian. Vampire King, you swore an oath to protect the Morning Star line. That oath now extends to this child. But know this, protecting him means choosing a side in a war that has been brewing since before your turning. The Crimson Hand is just the beginning. Others will come, some to kill him, some to use him, and some to worship him as the Messiah who will unite the divided world. Elena manages to sit up, her strength clearly fading. The ritual I reversed was meant to open a gate. Instead, it opens Sebastian's sealed bloodline. He'll have questions I can't answer, powers I can't teach him to control, and enemies I can't protect him from alone. Her eyes meet Lucian's, and in them is a plea more desperate than any Sebastian made. I'm asking you to do more than honor your oath. I'm asking you to raise my son in a world that wants him dead, to teach him to be both human and vampire, to protect him from threats I can barely name. The request is insane. A vampire king becoming guardian to a Dampier child. The treaty violations alone could spark a war. The political complications are endless. Marcus is already shaking his head, mouthing the word no. But Lucian looks at Sebastian, at the boy who ran through a forbidden forest to save his mother, and sees something he hasn't seen in 500 years, hope. But before Lucian can answer, the frozen cultists begin to move, not naturally. They're being puppeted by something else. Their mouths open in unison, and a voice that sounds like grinding tombstones speaks through them. The awakening has been witnessed. The Shadow King knows of the child. The hunt begins at dawn. Then the cultists' bodies burst into ash, leaving no evidence they ever existed. Elena whispers, they'll send everything they have. Every nightmare creature in the Shadow Realm will try to claim him before he learns to control his power. She looks at her son, tears streaming down her face. I can keep him safe for maybe a week. You can keep him safe for a lifetime. Please, Lucian, I'm not asking you to be his father. I'm asking you to be his teacher, his protector, the one thing standing between him and the darkness that will try to consume him. Lucian's decision will reshape both their worlds, but the choice is interrupted by Sebastian himself, who speaks for the first time since his awakening, and the words that come from his mouth are not a child's words. They're a warning, delivered in a voice that echoes with power, a warning about what's coming, a warning that will send Lucian and his entire kingdom into preparations for a siege, because the Shadow Realm doesn't wait for convenient moments. It strikes when you're vulnerable, and right now, with a newly awakened Dampier child who can't control his power, They're about to be as vulnerable as they've ever been. Sebastian's warning comes in fragments of ancient language that he shouldn't know, visions of futures that haven't happened yet. He describes armies of shadow creatures massing at the barrier between worlds. He speaks of 3 factions all racing to claim him, the Shadow Realm wanting to corrupt him, a human organization wanting to study him, and a vampire council believing he's an abomination that must be destroyed. Each wants him for different reasons, but all will kill anyone who gets in their way. When the visions release him, Sebastian collapses into his mother's arms, a 6-year-old child again, crying and confused. But the damage is done. Everyone in that church now knows that keeping this boy alive won't be a matter of hiding him. It will be a matter of surviving a war that's about to erupt across every realm. And the question hanging in the air is simple. Is one child worth that price? Marcus voices what others are thinking. My king, with respect, the strategic choice is clear. The child is a threat to the balance we've maintained for centuries. If we eliminate him now, before his power fully manifests, we prevent a war that could destroy us all. It's not cruelty speaking, it's cold military logic. One life versus thousands. But Lucian's response silences the room. The balance you speak of is a lie we tell ourselves, Marcus. We've had peace because both sides are too afraid to fight. But this child represents something we haven't seen in 300 years, the possibility of coexistence, of unity. If we kill him out of fear, we prove we're no better than the shadow creatures we claim to oppose. Lucian's voice drops to a dangerous whisper. And I swore an oath. Morning stars do not break oaths. Neither do I. Welena watches this exchange, her heart breaking and swelling simultaneously. She knows what Lucian's decision will cost him. The Vampire Council will demand his abdication. Human leaders will call for his execution. And the enemies coming for Sebastian won't discriminate between the child and his protector. By choosing to defend her son, Lucian is painting a target on his entire kingdom. Yet he doesn't hesitate. But there's something Elena hasn't told anyone, a secret she's kept even from Sebastian. The reason she knows so much about what her son is, what he'll become, is because she's seen this future before. Not in visions, but in written prophecy. A prophecy her mother made her memorize before dying. A prophecy that ends with either the unification of all realms or their complete destruction. And Sebastian is the fulcrum on which that fate balances. She makes a decision that will break her heart but might save her son's life. Lucian, I'll agree to your protection on one condition. You take Sebastian tonight. You disappear with him into vampire territory, where the wards are strongest. And you let everyone believe I'm dead. The church goes silent. If they think I'm gone, they'll focus their search on you and the boy. It might buy you time to train him, to prepare him for what's coming. Sebastian's protest is immediate and anguished. No, Mom, no, I just got you back. But Elena pulls him close, whispering words only he can hear. Words about sacrifice, about love, about doing hard things so the people we care about can survive. Sebastian doesn't understand. Doesn't want to understand, but he feels the finality in his mother's embrace. Lucian knows Elena is right, strategically, but he also knows what he's asking this child to endure. First, watching his mother nearly die, now being separated from her indefinitely. It's a trauma that could break an adult, let alone a 6-year-old, but Elena's eyes plead with him to accept, and Lucian finds himself nodding. We'll stage your death, a fire in the church. It will buy us the time we need. What follows is a carefully orchestrated deception. Elena drinks a potion Marcus produces, one that will slow her heart to near death for 3 days. The vampires will burn the church with the cultists' ashes, and one seemingly dead human woman inside. Investigators will find a body too charred to identify but clearly female, and Elena will wake up in a safe house, hidden by vampire magic, separated from her son but alive. The hardest moment comes when Elena has to say goodbye. She holds Sebastian as the potion begins to work, her heart rate slowing, her skin growing cold. To the boy, it looks like his mother is dying in his arms. His screams of grief are real, raw, and they echo through the church like a curse. Lucian has to physically pull the child away, as Elena's eyes close for what Sebastian believes is the last time. What Lucian doesn't tell the sobbing boy is that this separation might not be temporary. If the enemies coming are as powerful as the visions suggest, if the war is as devastating as the prophecy predicts, there's a real chance Sebastian will never see his mother alive again. Sometimes protection means keeping people apart, not bringing them together. It's a lesson Lucian learned centuries ago, one he'll now have to teach a broken-hearted child. As the vampires carry Elena's seemingly lifeless body away, and Marcus prepares to torch the church, Lucian holds Sebastian on his war horse. The boy has stopped crying, but the silence is worse. It's the silence of trauma, of a child's mind shutting down to protect itself from overwhelming pain. And as they ride back toward the castle with the glow of burning church behind them, Lucian makes a silent vow. He will teach this child to survive, to fight, to control the power awakening inside him, and when the enemies come, whether shadow creatures, human zealots, or vampire purists, they will learn why Lucian has ruled for 500 years. Not because he's the strongest, though he is, not because he's the most ruthless, though he can be, but because he never ever fails to protect what he claims as his own. And Sebastian Morningstar, Jampire child, bridge between worlds, is now under his protection. But even as Lucian makes this vow, in the Shadow Realm, something ancient stirs. The Shadow King has felt the awakening. He's seen the prophecy beginning to unfold, and he's decided that if he can't claim the child, he'll do the next best thing. He'll destroy everything the boy loves until there's nothing left worth protecting. The hunt doesn't begin at dawn, it begins now, and the first move in this game will target the one person Sebastian believes is already dead, ensuring that whether she survives or not, the boy's trauma becomes complete. The vampire castle is nothing like Sebastian imagined in his scattered childhood thoughts about monsters. It's not dark and decrepit, it's magnificent and terrifying, filled with beauty that makes his heart ache and shadows that whisper threats he can almost understand. And everywhere he looks, he sees eyes, crimson eyes, watching, judging, wondering if Lucian has made a catastrophic mistake bringing a Jampire child into their sacred home. Sebastian hasn't spoken since watching his mother die. 3 days have passed, and the boy exists in a state somewhere between shock and shutdown. He doesn't eat unless forced. He doesn't sleep, or when he does, the nightmares make him scream, and the power inside him, the awakened bloodline, keeps manifesting in bursts that shatter windows and crack stone walls. Lucian has assigned guards not to protect Sebastian from others, but to protect others from Sebastian's uncontrolled abilities. But tonight, something changes. Sebastian wakes from another nightmare, and instead of screaming, he speaks, 2 words that make the guards immediately summon their king. She's alive. The boy's eyes have that silver-gold glow again, the sign that his vampire half is emerging. And when Lucian arrives, Sebastian repeats it with absolute certainty. My mother. She's alive. I can feel her. She's in pain. Lucian's blood runs cold. The potion should have kept Elena in suspended animation for exactly 3 days before she woke safely in the secure location. But if Sebastian can sense her, if their bond is strong enough to transcend the magical dampening that was supposed to hide her, then others might be able to sense her too. And if she's in pain, something has gone terribly wrong with the plan. He makes a decision that Marcus will later call insane. Sebastian, I need you to focus. Can you feel where she is? Can you show me? The boy nods, pressing his small hand against Lucian's chest. And suddenly, the vampire king is flooded with sensations. Elena's terror, her pain, the smell of shadow magic, and a location burned into his consciousness like a brand. The safe house has been compromised. The night guard mobilizes instantly, but Lucian knows they won't arrive in time. Whatever attacked the safe house did so with precision, meaning they had intelligence about vampire movements, meaning there's a traitor in his court. But identifying the spy will have to wait. Right now, the only thing that matters is reaching Elena before whoever took her completes whatever they're planning. Sebastian grabs Lucian's arm with surprising strength. I'm coming with you. It's not a request. The boy's eyes are fully silver now, and the power radiating from him makes the air crackle. This isn't a traumatized child anymore. This is something else. Something that's using Sebastian's body and grief as fuel for a transformation that's happening too fast. Lucian should refuse. Taking an unstable Jampire child into a combat situation violates every tactical principle he knows, but he also recognizes what's happening. Sebastian's vampire half is emerging to protect what it loves, and trying to suppress it now might cause a violent explosion that could level half the castle. Sometimes, the only way through a crisis is straight into its heart. The ride to the safe house is a blur of vampire speed and Sebastian's power acting as a beacon. What they find when they arrive confirms Lucian's worst fears. The wards are shattered, the guards are dead, torn apart by shadow magic, and Elena is gone, taken through a portal that's still fading. But the shadow creatures left a message, written in blood on the walls, a message that makes even Lucian's ancient heart seize. Trade the child for the mother. Midnight. The Veil Gate. Come alone, or watch her soul be consumed. It's signed with a symbol Lucian knows too well. The mark of the Shadow King himself. This isn't a random attack. This is a declaration of war. Sebastian reads the message, and something inside him shatters. The last thread of his childhood snaps. When he speaks, his voice carries harmonics that shouldn't come from a 6-year-old throat. They want me? Fine. I'll go. I'll trade myself for her. The power surge that follows is strong enough to crack the foundation of the building. Furniture lifts off the ground. The temperature drops so fast that frost forms on every surface. Lucian grabs the boy's shoulders, forcing him to meet his eyes. Sebastian, listen to me. This is exactly what they want. They're counting on your grief, making you reckless. The moment you step through that gate, they'll have both of you. Your mother's sacrifice will mean nothing. But Sebastian isn't listening. The vampire part of him has taken control, and it knows only one thing: protect family at any cost. The boy's next move shocks everyone. He vanishes, not running away, actually teleporting, a Dampier ability that shouldn't manifest for decades. He reappears at the fading portal and is about to jump through when Lucian catches him, moving with speed that makes Sebastian's attempt look slow. The struggle that follows isn't between a man and a child, it's between two supernatural forces, and the building begins to collapse around them. Marcus and the night guard pull them both out just before the structure implodes. Sebastian is screaming, fighting with strength that takes 3 vampires to restrain. Let me go. I have to save her. She's all I have. The raw anguish in his voice breaks something in Lucian, because he remembers feeling exactly this way once, 300 years ago, when someone he loved was taken, and he remembers the mistake he made, rushing in without a plan, turning a rescue into a massacre. Lucian makes a choice that surprises everyone, including himself. He releases Sebastian and kneels to the boy's eye level. You want to save your mother? Then stop acting like a child and start thinking like a warrior. The Shadow King expects you to come alone, emotional, easy to capture. We're going to do the opposite. We're going to bring an army. We're going to plan. And we're going to make him regret taking someone I've sworn to protect. The words penetrate Sebastian's rage-fueled haze. You'll help me save her. Even though it's a trap, Lucian's smile is cold and predatory, especially because it's a trap. Traps work both ways, Sebastian, and I've had 500 years to learn how to turn them against those who set them. But I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Sebastian's answer comes after a long moment of internal struggle. The silver fades from his eyes slightly, as his human half reasserts some control. What do we do? And with that question, the real planning begins. Because Lucian isn't just going to save Elena. He's going to send a message to every creature in the Shadow Realm that threatens his kingdom. A message written in the ashes of their finest warriors. The war council that assembles in Lucian's throne room is unprecedented. Vampire elders who haven't left their crypts in centuries, the Night Guard's most decorated warriors. And standing among them all, a 6-year-old boy whose presence makes half the room uncomfortable. But when Lucian begins explaining his plan, discomfort turns to shock, then to a grudging respect that transcends age and species. The Veil Gate sits at the boundary between our world and the Shadow Realm, Lucian begins, his voice carrying the authority of 500 years. The Shadow King chose it because he believes we won't risk a full assault there. Shadow magic is strongest at the boundary. Our kind weakens. He expects a small rescue party, a desperate attempt. Instead, we're going to give him a war he's never seen. Marcus unfolds ancient maps showing the terrain around the Veil Gate. My king, even with our full strength, attacking the gate is suicide. The shadow creatures will have every advantage, and we can't bring Sebastian. He's what they want. The moment they sense him, they'll shift all their focus to capture. But Lucian's smile suggests he's already thought of this. That's why Sebastian won't be with us. He'll already be inside the Shadow Realm. The room erupts in protests. Sending a child into enemy territory alone is madness. But Sebastian speaks up, his voice carrying a confidence that wasn't there hours ago. I'm the bait. While they're focused on catching me, King Lucian attacks from behind. Lucian nods. More specifically, while their forces swarm Sebastian's position, we'll be extracting Elena from wherever they're holding her. Sebastian's presence will act as a beacon. Every shadow creature will converge on him, leaving their defenses elsewhere weakened. He looks at the boy. But this only works if you can survive long enough for us to reach your mother and get out. The question hangs heavy. Can a 6-year-old Dampier with barely controlled powers survive against creatures that have existed since before human civilization? The logical answer is no. But Sebastian has something most warriors don't. He has nothing left to lose and everything to fight for, and he's beginning to understand the power awakening inside him. An elder vampire named Cassius, who fought in the original war against the Shadow Kings, speaks. The boy would need protection, something to keep the shadow creatures from overwhelming him immediately. I propose we give him the sanguine armor. The room goes silent. The sanguine armor is legendary, forged from vampire blood and shadow during the last Great War. It adapts to its wearer, grants them enhanced abilities, and most importantly, cannot be penetrated by shadow magic. But there's a problem. The armor was made for adults. It's been sealed in the vault for 300 years, and the activation ritual requires the wearer to endure pain that has driven grown vampires mad. Lucian looks at Sebastian. The armor will test you. It will hurt in ways you can't imagine. And if your will breaks during the bonding, it will consume you. Are you willing to take that risk? Sebastian's answer is immediate. Yes. No hesitation. No doubt. The boy who ran crying through the forest has been replaced by someone who understands that saving his mother requires becoming something more than human, more than vampire, something the Shadow Realm has never encountered. The next 6 hours are a blur of preparation. Weapons are distributed, attack formations planned, escape routes mapped, and in the castle's deepest vault, Sebastian stands before a suit of armor that seems to pulse with its own heartbeat. The armor is beautiful and terrifying, black as midnight, with veins of crimson running through it like captured lightning. Lucian explains the process one final time. Once you put it on, the armor will bond with your blood. It will read your memories, your fears, your strengths. It will remake itself to fit you perfectly. But during the bonding, you'll relive every painful moment of your life, amplified 100 times. Most who attempt this don't survive the first minute. Sebastian reaches for the armor anyway. As his fingers touch the cold metal, it liquefies, flowing up his arm like living blood. The pain hits instantly, and Sebastian's scream echoes through the vault. He sees his mother being tortured, his father's abandonment before he was born. Every moment of fear and loss condensed into a single, endless agony. The armor is testing him, searching for the breaking point. But Sebastian finds something in the pain, a core of determination that won't bend. He thinks about his mother's sacrifice, about Lucian's oath, about the chance to become strong enough that no one he loves will ever be taken again. And slowly, impossibly, the screaming stops. The armor settles into place, reforming into a perfect fit for a 6-year-old warrior. When Sebastian opens his eyes, they're glowing pure silver gold. Lucian witnesses the transformation with a mixture of pride and sorrow, because the child who emerges from that bonding isn't entirely Sebastian anymore. He's something new, something that walks the line between life and death with ease, a Dampier knight in sanguine armor, ready to walk into hell to save his mother. The final piece of the plan involves timing. Midnight is when the Shadow King expects Sebastian to arrive, but Lucian's forces will strike at 11:30, using the element of surprise to breach the gate before defenses are fully prepared. Sebastian will enter through a shadow portal at 11:45, giving him 15 minutes to draw attention before the trade deadline. Marcus voices one last concern. My king, what if we can't find Elena in time? What if the Shadow King has hidden her somewhere we can't reach? It's the question everyone is thinking. The plan is brilliant tactically, but it assumes they can locate and extract Elena while Sebastian holds the line. If they can't, the boy will be trapped in the Shadow Realm with no escape. Lucian's answer is simple and absolute. Then I stay with him until we find her or die trying. I swore an oath, and I have never broken an oath. The weight of those words settles over the room. Their king is willing to risk everything, including his own life and the stability of their kingdom, for a human woman and her hybrid child.
It should seem foolish. Instead, it reminds them why they follow him. As the war party prepares to depart, Sebastian has one moment alone with Lucian. What if I'm not strong enough? What if I fail? It's the first time the boy has admitted fear since the bonding. Lucian kneels down, placing a hand on the armored shoulder. Then you'll fail, having tried everything. That's all any warrior can do.
But Sebastian, I've lived 500 years, I've seen countless battles, and I've learned one truth. The people who change the world aren't the strongest. They're the ones who refuse to give up. The moment passes, the army marches, and as they approach the Veil Gate under cover of darkness, every warrior knows they're about to participate in a battle that will be remembered for centuries. The rescue of Eleanor Morningstar, the first strike against the Shadow King in 300 years, and the debut of a 6-year-old boy in sanguine armor who is about to teach the Shadow Realm a lesson in determination. But what none of them know, what even Lucian hasn't anticipated, is that the Shadow King has his own surprise waiting, because he didn't just take Eleanor to lure Sebastian. He took her to perform a ritual that will force the boy to make an impossible choice: save his mother, or save the 1,000 innocent souls the Shadow King has been collecting for exactly this moment. And whatever Sebastian chooses will define not just this battle, but the kind of person he'll become. The Veil Gate stands like a wound in reality, a massive archway of black stone that pulses with sickly purple light. The air around it tastes of copper and decay. And as Lucian's army approaches, shadow creatures begin emerging from the darkness like nightmares given form. Creatures with too many limbs, with faces that shift and change, with voices that promise madness and death. But the vampires don't hesitate. At Lucian's signal, the Night Guard charges, and the battle begins. Steel meets shadow, blood meets darkness. The clash is violent and immediate, exactly as planned. While the shadow forces focus on the frontal assault, Sebastian slips through a smaller portal 100 yards away, entering the Shadow Realm alone. The sensation of crossing the boundary is like drowning in ice. Everything on the other side is wrong. The sky is the color of old bruises. The ground feels soft, as if walking on flesh. And the whispers, thousands of voices speaking in languages that hurt to hear, promising things Sebastian's mind can't fully process. The armor tightens around him protectively, filtering out the worst of the psychological assault. Sebastian moves through the twisted landscape, following the bond he shares with his mother. It pulls him forward like a compass, through forests of trees that bleed when he passes, across rivers of liquid shadow that try to grab his ankles, toward a structure that makes his stomach clench, a tower of bones and darkness, spiraling up into the purple sky, with a light at its peak that feels familiar and wrong. His mother is there. He can sense her. But between him and that tower stand creatures that make the ones attacking Lucian's forces look tame. These are the Shadow King's elite guards, beings that exist partially out of phase with reality, making them nearly impossible to hit. They see Sebastian immediately, and the hunt begins. The boy runs, but he's not fleeing. He's leading them away from the path Lucian will take once he breaches the gate. The armor enhances his speed, making him faster than any human child should be. But the shadow guards are faster still. They chase him through the nightmare landscape, herding him toward an open arena where escape will be impossible. Sebastian realizes the trap too late. The ground beneath him falls away, and he plunges into a pit where dozens of shadow creatures wait. As they close in, something inside him awakens fully. The vampire bloodline surges, and for the first time, Sebastian doesn't fight it. He lets it consume him, lets it transform him into what he needs to be to survive. What emerges from that pit, moments later, isn't a scared child. It's a warrior. The sanguine armor has fully synchronized with Sebastian's hybrid nature, creating weapons from his own blood. Blades extend from his forearms. His movements become fluid, predatory, and when he speaks, his voice carries power that makes the shadow creatures hesitate. You wanted me. Come and get me. The battle that follows will be retold in vampire legends for centuries. A 6-year-old boy, armored in living blood, fighting shadow creatures that have existed since time's beginning. He doesn't have technique, he doesn't have experience, but he has something they don't expect. He has rage. Rage at his mother being taken, rage at being forced into this impossible situation, and rage gives him strength that surprises even himself. Meanwhile, Lucian's forces have breached the Veil Gate. The casualties are mounting,
but they're pushing forward, cutting through shadow defenses toward the bone tower. Marcus leads a strike team directly to the tower's base, while Lucian provides cover, his ancient power creating a shield of blood magic that deflects the worst of the shadow attacks. Inside the tower, Elena hangs suspended in chains of pure darkness, barely conscious.
The ritual circle glows with malevolent energy as Sebastian stands at its edge, his small frame dwarfed by the magnitude of the choice before him. His mother hangs in chains, barely alive. The 1,000 souls swirl around her, their silent screams visible as wisps of tortured light, and the Shadow King's voice echoes through the chamber like poison. Choose, Dampier child, your mother or the innocents. You cannot save both. Lucian moves to intervene, but shadow magic freezes him in place. The Shadow King had prepared for this too. The Vampire King cannot help you now, boy. This choice is yours alone. And the best part, you have 10 seconds before the ritual completes, and I consume them all anyway. Choose, now. Sebastian's mind races through possibilities. Break the chains holding his mother. The ritual circle would kill her instantly. Destroy the circle. The souls would be consumed before he could free them all. Fight the Shadow King. He's too powerful, and 10 seconds isn't enough time. Every option leads to loss. Every path ends in tragedy. This is the corruption the Shadow King wanted. Force a child to choose who dies. But Sebastian remembers something Lucian told him during training. The people who change the world aren't the strongest. They're the ones who refuse to give up. Refuse to give up. Refuse to accept impossible choices. Refuse to play by the enemy's rules. And in that moment of clarity, Sebastian does something no one expects. He makes a third choice. The boy steps into the ritual circle itself. The moment his armored foot crosses the boundary, the shadow magic meant to drain his mother latches onto him instead. Pain explodes through every nerve. The armor begins cracking as the ritual tries to consume his hybrid blood. But Sebastian doesn't scream. He speaks, his voice amplified by the very magic trying to destroy him. You want Dampier blood. You want the power of both worlds. Take it all. What Sebastian is doing is insane. He's not trying to stop the ritual. He's supercharging it with his own life force, overwhelming the spell with more power than it was designed to handle. The Shadow King realizes the danger too late. No, you'll destroy the entire tower. You'll kill everyone, including yourself. Sebastian's answer is a smile that's far too knowing for a 6-year-old. Maybe. Or maybe Dampier blood does something different than vampire or human blood. Maybe it breaks your spell instead of feeding it. Only one way to find out. The armor pulses as Sebastian channels every drop of his awakened power into the ritual circle. The sanguine armor wasn't just protection. It was a conduit, designed to amplify whatever the wearer needed most. The ritual circle begins to crack like glass. The shadow magic feeding on Sebastian's blood turns gold, the same color as when his bloodline first awakened. And Elena, still hanging in chains, watches as her son's impossible gambit starts to work. The dark energy meant to consume souls is being transformed into energy that's freeing them. One by one, the 1,000 trapped lights begin breaking free from the ritual. The Shadow King roars in fury, trying to stop the process, but Lucian is already moving. The moment the shadow magic holding him broke, he charged the ancient entity with 500 years of accumulated rage. You made one mistake, Lucian growls as he drives a blade of crystallized blood through the Shadow King's form. You threatened my ward, and I've toppled empires for less. The battle between Lucian and the Shadow King shakes the tower to its foundation, but Sebastian doesn't watch. He focuses entirely on the ritual, on transforming darkness to light, on freeing the souls while simultaneously keeping his mother alive. The strain is killing him. The armor is shattering. Blood streams from his nose and eyes. But he doesn't stop. Elena whispers through the pain. Sebastian, let me go. Save yourself and the others. Please, baby, don't die for me. But Sebastian's answer is the same one she gave him days ago. I'm doing what I have to do so the people I love can survive. And in that moment, Elena understands what her son has become. Not a child, not a victim, a hero willing to sacrifice everything for others. The ritual circle explodes in a burst of golden light. The 1,000 souls are freed, streaming out of the tower toward whatever afterlife awaits them. Elena's chains dissolve, and she falls, only to be caught by Marcus, who had fought his way to the chamber, and Sebastian collapses, the sanguine armor falling away in pieces, his small body broken but alive.
Lucian ends the Shadow King with a final blow that sends the entity shrieking back to whatever void spawned it. Then he's at Sebastian's side, applying vampire blood to the boy's wounds, forcing healing even as he calculates how much damage has been done. Stay with me, Sebastian. You did it. Your mother is safe. The souls are free. Just stay awake. But Sebastian is fading.
He used too much power. His hybrid physiology is shutting down, unable to sustain the level of energy he channeled. Elena crawls to her son, pulling him into her arms, her tears mixing with his blood. No, no, no. You saved me. You don't get to leave me now. Sebastian, please. Lucian makes a decision that will change everything. There's one way to save him, but you have to trust me, Elena, and you might hate me for it. Without waiting for permission, he bites his own wrist and presses it to Sebastian's lips. Drink, boy. Take my blood. Let it heal what's broken. What Lucian is doing is giving Sebastian a direct transfusion of ancient vampire blood. Not just any vampire blood, but the blood of a king who has accumulated 5 centuries of power. The effect will be unpredictable. It could heal him. It could turn him fully vampire. It could kill him outright. But doing nothing will definitely result in death, so Lucian takes the risk. Sebastian's body convulses as the king's blood enters his system. The wounds begin to close, but something else is happening. The transformation he underwent during the bonding with the armor is now permanent. His eyes open, glowing with that silver-gold light, but different, more stable, more controlled, and when he speaks, his voice carries harmonics of power that make the tower walls vibrate. Mom, is it over? Elena sobs with relief. It's over, baby. You saved everyone. You saved me. She holds him tight, but she can feel that her son is different now. The innocence he sacrificed wasn't just metaphorical. By taking on the ritual's dark magic and transforming it, by drinking a vampire king's blood, Sebastian has crossed a threshold he can never uncross. He'll never be fully human again, but he's also stronger, more resilient, and finally in control of the power inside him. The tower is collapsing around them. Lucian gathers them both. We need to leave, now. The vampire forces begin their retreat, carrying their wounded, leaving behind the Shadow Realm's devastated defenses. As they cross back through the Veil Gate, the portal begins to seal behind them, and with it, any chance the Shadow Realm has of immediate retaliation. They emerge into the mortal world as dawn approaches. For the first time, Sebastian sees the sunrise while standing next to vampires. By all logic, the light should harm them, force them to retreat, but the boy's presence, his hybrid nature, creates a shield of sorts. The vampires can stand in his shadow during sunrise without burning. It's a small thing, but it represents something profound. Sebastian isn't just a bridge between worlds. He's the one who makes coexistence possible. But as they return to the castle victorious, battered but alive, there's one more revelation waiting. One more secret the Shadow King left behind. Because his defeat wasn't random, it was prophesied. And the prophecy continues beyond this moment, speaking of trials to come, enemies yet to face, and a final choice that will determine the fate of all realms. Sebastian has won this battle, but the war for his soul, his power, and his future has only just begun. The vampire castle has become a hospital. The throne room is filled with wounded warriors recovering from shadow injuries that don't heal easily. The halls echo with the sounds of pain mixed with relief. They won, but the cost was steep. 14 vampires dead, 37 wounded, and one 6-year-old boy who will never be the same. Sebastian sits in Lucian's private chambers, his mother at his side, while healers examine him with expressions mixing awe and concern. The physical wounds are healed thanks to Lucian's blood, but the metaphysical changes are profound and irreversible. Sebastian's aging has slowed dramatically. His strength is 10 times what it should be. He can sense emotions like a vampire, move with their speed, and survive in sunlight like a human. The perfect hybrid. But perfection comes at a price. He'll outlive every human he knows except his mother, assuming she survives the trauma of her torture. Elena hasn't left his side since they returned. She holds his hand like she's afraid he'll disappear if she lets go. The guilt on her face is palpable. "I'm so sorry, baby. I should have found another way. I should have protected you better. You shouldn't have had to become this." But Sebastian, with wisdom far beyond his years, squeezes her hand back. "Mum, if I had to choose again, I'd make the same choice. You're worth it. Lucian watches this exchange from across the room, and something shifts in his ancient heart. He's had subjects, warriors, even friends over the centuries, but he's never had family. The closest he came died 300 years ago in the Morning Star massacre. And now, looking at this woman and her extraordinary son, he realizes they've become something he thought impossible. They've become people he'd die for, not out of obligation but out of love.